Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Sydney Greenstreet, starring in the New Adventures of Nero-Wolfe from 72 years ago, January 5th, 1951, the case of the deadly sellout. And we thank you for tuning in on this Sure Happy It's Thursday. This is the 5th day of January, and we have 360 days till we get to the next year. Martha Dandridge Custis married George Washington on this date in 1759. Richmond, Virginia, burned to the ground by British naval forces led by Benedict Arnold in 1781. 1846, the House voted to stop sharing the Oregon Territory with the UK in 1846. 1896, an Austrian newspaper reported Wilhelm Röntgen discovered a new type of radiation that would become known as X-rays. Ford Motor Company announced an 8-hour workday on this date in 1914 and a minimum wage of $5 for a day's labor. The Free Committee for a German Workers' Peace was founded on this date in 1919. That would become the Nazi Party. Construction of the Golden Gate Bridge began in San Francisco on this date in 1933. FM radio demonstrated to the FCC for the first time in 1940. The first color newsreel shown on this date in 1948, the Tournament of Roses Parade and the Rose Bowl. 1949, President Truman outlined his series of social and economic reforms known as the Fair Deal.
This is the task before us. It is not an easy one. It has many complications, and there will be strong opposition from selfish interests. I hope for cooperation from farmers, from labor, and from business. Every segment of our population and every individual have a right to expect from our government a fair deal.
President Truman on this date in 1949. The soap opera All My Children debuted on this date in 1970. And in 1972, President Nixon ordered the development of a space shuttle program.
This decision by the President is a most historic step in the history of the space program, in that it gives man, for the first time, the capability of routinely and at a moment's notice, when necessary, of getting to and from space with either men or equipment.
The biggest problem, in my opinion, with the space shuttle program was that it allowed no real room for upgrades. The program ran 20 years before being scrapped in 2011 after two major disasters. And like I said, it says something that in the 80s, in the late 80s, they were going on eBay trying to find components. That's fact. Let's see. Passing away on this date in history, President Calvin Coolidge, also educator George Washington Carver, Hans Conried, Arthur Kennedy, fine actor, Tip O'Neill, politician, Sonny Bono, and Pistol Pete Maravich.
Maravich, driven, Maravich, from 35 feet away, scores! He tied the record! He tied the record at 7:54 in the ball game!
The sad story about that fine basketball star is that he died in a pickup basketball game in a Pasadena gym of heart failure. He was only 40 years old. Now let's see. Born on this date, actor George Reeves, actress Jane Wyman, Sam Phillips, the producer for Sun Records. Remember, he produced a lot of stuff from Elvis. Politician Walter Mondale, Wilbert Harrison, going to Kansas City. Actor Robert Duvall is 92 today. Actress Diane Keaton, 77. Isaac on the Love Boat. Ted Lang is 75. She was Nancy Drew, and on TV's Dynasty, Pamela Sue Martin, 70 years old today. Singer Marilyn Manson is 54. From A Star is Born, Bradley Cooper, 45. From Mad Men, January Jones, 45. DJ Deadmau5, who spells it Dead, M-A-U-5, 42 years of age. And from Laguna Beach, Kristen Cavallari is 36. Those just a few of the people who celebrate the 5th day of January as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the 4 freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
And from 72 years ago, January 5th, 1951, Sydney Greenstreet in the New Adventures of Nero-Wolfe. On this Thursday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite radio station. Now on this Thursday, Classic Radio Theater, Sydney Greenstreet in the New Adventures of Nero-Wolfe, January 5th, 1951, 72 years ago today.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ringing of that phone bell means mystery, adventure.
Nero-Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking. And you've lost your... Oh.
Archie, the answer is no.
Hold on a second. The answer to what is no, Mr. Wolfe?
I shall not attempt to find a blonde for anyone.
You've got the man on the phone a little wrong, Mr. Wolfe. He's not looking for a blonde. He's looking for a prize fighter.
Indeed. Have him come here.
Okay. Mr. Wolfe will see you at 8. So long. I was all set to argue with you about taking the case. You gave in too fast.
Nonsense. I'm fascinated by the thought of anyone misplacing a prize fighter. They're usually quite large, aren't they?
They are. But what this guy is worried about is not only finding his boy, but finding him alive.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the bulkiest, balkiest, smartest, and most unpredictable detective in the world. That chair-born genius, Nero-Wolfe, created by Rex Stout and brought to you in a new series of adventures over this NBC network in the person of Mr. Sydney Greenstreet.
The case of the deadly sellout. That's what my boss, Nero-Wolfe, called it. And it almost meant curtains for the firm of Wolfe and Goodwin. But let me give it to you straight right from the beginning. Although you ought to know that it wasn't until it was all over that I knew the very beginning of it myself. It all started in the New York flat of one Brock Rainey.
Yes?
The name is Jerry Fay.
I'm supposed to know you?
Being a very good friend of Pepe Gatto's, it's time you got to know me. May I come in?
Sure. You've got a problem, Miss Fay?
Pepe took a fall at the garden last night against a coffee and bum named Eubanks, right?
As far as I know, Sister Gatto met his match.
Please, Mr. Rainey, do me a favor. Skip the sausage meat. It happens I saw the $1,200 you counted out to him to take a quick dive in the first.
You did?
How else would I know?
Okay, then here's my wrist. Slap it, Miss Fay. I'm a bad bull.
Now, look, who's kidding who? I don't care if Pepe makes himself a few deals on the side. I should worry whether he gives those meat-eaters on the benches a run for the ducats. What's it to me?
If you're not worried, Sugar Plum, then neither am I. Also, I'm a very busy man.
Not too busy to pay off, I hope.
Pay off? To who?
To me.
For what?
For keeping it to myself that you collected $5,000 from the Eubanks crowd for getting Pepe to take that dive. Certain people might not like to hear it.
Miss Fay.
Yeah?
Drop dead.
I don't think we understand each other.
Which is just as well. Now get out of here.
There's something
Blow,
else.
bimbo.
Okay, Mr. Rainey. Have it your way. I'll go find someone with a more sympathetic ear. Someone like Lawson. Arnold F. Lawson. So long.
Wait. Where does Lawson come into this?
You asking or stalling? Lawson dropped a sizable piece of change on last night's two-step.
No. Close the door, Jerry.
Oh, yeah. $25,000 to be exact. That's a lot of corn to lose because a cheap fight manager arranges a frame. At least Arnold Lawson might think so.
Sit down.
Who's tired? Look, Mr. Rainey, it goes very simply in only one way. Lawson at yet knows from nothing except that your boy Gatto lost the fight. He may suspect, but he don't know. And he really don't have to know.
Glad to hear you say that.
And I'll be glad to see the shade of 3,000 long green banknotes.
How much?
You heard me, $3,000.
Get out.
Okay, I'm going. To the next phone and call Lawson.
Look, Jerry, give me time, huh? I haven't got that kind of dough right now.
Tell it to Lawson. When he gets through with you, you won't need any kind of dough.
You know, I've got Gatto set for a go with Mellish, the title contender. Gatto can take him. Please believe me, he's going to take him.
So?
So after what happened in the Eubanks fight, the odds on Gatto will be like a war debt. We can clean up.
Listen,
we can make
Heel, I wouldn't trust you from 11:59 to midnight. Get it up. Now. I'll give you 6 hours. After that, Lawson. So long.
Come on.
Hello?
Hello, Rainey, this is Gatto.
Hiya, baby.
Look, the boys dropped in on me at the office at Mindy's. Lawson wants to see me.
What? Lost?
Look, Bum, I'm the one with the cauliflower ears. You heard me. What do I do?
Nothing.
But...
Don't go near him. Stay home. Let me take care of it.
How? What'll you do?
I don't know yet, Pepe, but I'll find a way.
How did he find out?
Your girlfriend.
What? She wouldn't do that. She hates the guy.
Hate him or love him, she told him.
I can't believe it.
I suggest you call our little doll Jerry and give her your regards for the double cross. Meanwhile, stay put in your apartment. Don't move.
But, Rainey... Hello?
275, 319, 3...
Archie. What on earth are you mumbling about?
The high cost of blonde.
Indeed.
Oh, you can say that again.
I have no intention of doing so.
Okay, be smug. But there must have been a time even in your life when knickknacks from Tiffany figured on the budget.
Phooey.
Not to mention steak dinners and champagne. Or what did you feed your girls? Peppermint lozenges?
Nonsense.
Nonsense?
They preferred lime.
Oh, I'm dying, and he laughs. Mr. Wolfe?
Yes?
I have decided that you are giving me a raise.
Archie, this is not a period in which unilateral decisions are wise.
So I'll be a dope and get a raise, huh?
As for your future mental attainments, you may be right. As for a raise...
You want to drive me to gambling? Like betting on fights or going... Okay, it's the doorbell and I'm answering it.
The name's Rainey. You're Goodwin?
I'm Goodwin. Come in.
Is Wolf in?
Mr. Wolfe is always in. Unlike prize fighters, I guess. Come on.
Thank you.
Mr. Wolfe, this is Mr. Rainey, the man who lost his prize fighter.
How do you do, sir?
I'm not doing so good. Mr. Wolfe, you got to help me.
That will depend.
On what?
The fee? I digress. Your problem is what, Mr. Rainey?
Mr. Wolfe, I manage a fighter named Gatto. Maybe you've heard of him.
I have not. However, that is of little significance. You are having difficulty with this Mr. Gatto?
I'm not having difficulty with him. I can't find him. Maybe you better let me give you the whole picture, huh?
Very well.
Well, Gatto is an up-and-coming boy, Mr. Wolfe. He had a little upset last week with a guy named Eubanks. But everybody knows in spite of that, Gatto's heading for the big time. I think he'll prove that when he goes against Mellish.
Mr. Mellish being another pugilist, huh?
That's right, Mr. Wolfe. Now, Pepe, that's Gatto. Pepe was due at the Turf Club this afternoon to meet the opposition management and go over the setup. He was due, but he didn't show. I waited all afternoon, and then I started the phone calls and taxis.
The results?
No results. I combed every joint I ever knew him to buy a beer in, and the score was 0. Matter of fact, nobody's even seen him for 4 days.
You would have tried the gymnasiums, naturally?
I did.
Does this pugilist have a home?
Yeah, 206A Rathburn Street. A penthouse on the roof.
He was not at home during all this time?
That's where I tried first. It was empty as a bank on Saturday afternoon.
I see. And you want me to find him for you?
If Pepe blows this fight, Mr. Wolfe, it'll ruin his career.
And the preservation of his career is worth a good deal to you?
I got a check for $2,000 right here.
Archie?
I'll get it. $2,000.
Very well, Mr. Rainey. I shall take immediate steps.
I got a cab waiting outside. We can get started right away.
We? Phew. I shall remain here.
But how do you expect to...
Archie.
Yes, Mr. Wolfe.
You will leave with Mr. Rainey. I need information. You might try the Rathbun Street penthouse to start with.
But I've already been there.
With all due apologies, Mr. Rainey, suppose you restrict your activities to pugilists. Archie is a trained observer. You are not. Archie, you will pick up whatever you can at Gatto's apartment. I especially suggest a careful check on his wardrobe.
Wardrobe?
If his clothes are missing, Mr. Rainey, it would indicate that he left voluntarily and deliberately, for whatever reasons he may have had. If they are not, Archie, you will phone me from the apartment after your investigation is over.
Okay.
I shall, in the meantime, devote some thought to the subject.
Huh? For $2,000, all you're going to do is devote some thought?
Mr. Rainey, if I were not a modest man, I would point out to you that you're getting quite a... a bargain.
Gatto? Gatto?
He's not here. I told you that. I was up here before.
He left the door unlocked?
I had a key. Guess I forgot to lock up after I left.
Let's look around. Bathroom?
Yeah.
Empty. It's a nice penthouse. That a closet?
Yeah. What do you think? He's playing hide and seek?
Try it.
Okay.
Anything in there?
Nothing I'm looking for.
What's that you found?
A hat.
Well, let's see.
A lady's hat.
Yeah, smart and expensive. Label reads a Madame Yetta original. That bunch of lace and feathers cost somebody a fast $50.
Yeah, probably one of his girls left it behind.
And maybe she'll call for it. Come on, we'll take a gander out on the roof.
I took a gander out there. It's bare as a bone.
What have we got over there with the chimney?
Where?
Over there.
Just an old awning. Got blown down in the storm last month.
Be right with you.
What are you doing?
Looking under it. Oh, brother.
You found him?
Yeah, we found him, chum. A little late. 2 holes in his dorsal development and dead as a clay pigeon.
Yeah.
Well, what have you got to say?
Well, now at least the bookies will cancel all bets. We both save our dough.
Yeah. I got to phone Mr. Wolfe. And there he was, Mr. Wolfe, under the old canvas awning.
Where's the hat? Oh, this is it.
That's it, boss. Snazzy number, no?
Where'd you find it?
On the floor of the closet.
You're right, Archie. Frothy little bit of millinery, caprice. Have you any idea whose it may be, Mr. Rainey?
I wish I did.
You have to find out.
Well, how, boss?
The hat is an original. See, the label under the band reads a Madame Yetta original. Tomorrow morning, Archie, you will interview Madame Yetta.
Yes, boss.
And discover in your inimitable fashion for whom she made this chapeau. Hello?
Archie again, Mr. Wolfe. Per your instructions, I have just talked to Madame Yetta.
What did you learn?
Madame Yetta tells me she made that hat for a Mrs. Lawson.
Who is Mrs. Lawson?
Wife of an ex-beer hustler who's in the chips and puts on airs. Lives in a penthouse of the Bradford Arms. I was just about to hop a cab and go up there, boss.
Good. Keep this up, Archie. And through sheer practice, you may yet develop a full-blown intelligence.
Well, I'm trying, Mr. Wolfe. And after the Lawsons, I do what?
Return here immediately and hurry.
How do you do, Mr. Lawson?
Oh, Mr. Goodwin. My secretary tells me you're a detective.
My boss might argue with you on that, Mr. Lawson.
Your boss?
It happens I work for Nero-Wolfe.
I see. And you wish to see me about...
About this hat.
Hat? Oh, I see, yeah. Well, Mr. Goodwin, please believe me, I never wear hats like that.
Would your wife be likely to say the same?
My wife? Just what are you getting at?
Would I seem too nosy if I asked how well you and your wife know Pepe Gatto?
How well do we know who?
Pepe Gato.
The pug?
No, not such a pug.
No, huh? I lost $25,000 on him in the Eubanks fight. If you ask me, he laid down like a dog.
And did you talk it over with him?
Talk it over with him. Never seen the man in my life.
Not even at the fight?
No, I placed the bet over the telephone. I'd scarcely have anything to do with a character like Gatto, Mr. Goodwin.
You surely won't from here on out, Mr. Lawson.
What do you mean?
Gatto is dead.
Well, let's see what he thinks about this. You're listening to The New Adventures of Nero-Wolfe, starring Sydney Greenstreet, January 5th, 1951 on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We'll have the news from 72 years ago today, coming up following these messages. Thanks for listening to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite station. An episode of The New Adventures of Nero-Wolfe starring Sydney Greenstreet, as it was originally broadcast Friday, January 5th, 1951, in the newspapers of that Friday 72 years ago today. These were some of the headlines. The last United Nations personnel at Incheon pulled out by sea just as Chinese Red troops approached the flaming docks of that port for abandoned Seoul. Some troops were taken off by ships, but the main UN force retreated southward overland in long columns. They were pursued by Chinese communists moving south across the frozen Han River. The Han flows through Seoul. Abandonment of Incheon, begun last night, was completed at 2 a.m. Demolition squads blew up everything in the harbor of value to the communists. Seoul was wrecked. Through it, the communist tide rolled south and west. Diplomatic quarters in Washington taken by surprise yesterday by reports the Soviet Union is ready to reopen the long-neglected negotiations for settlement of its $11.4 billion Lend-Lease debt to the United States. Reliable sources said the forthcoming talks may be open this weekend. During World War II, the U.S. rushed food and military supplies to Russia. A few small warships have been returned, and one of 3 icebreakers. Washington reports say that Moscow would send a delegation to Washington to discuss the settlement. One interpretation gives a revival of this spirit of settlement is that it may be part of a Russian peace maneuver. Vice Premier Molotov may appoint the delegation. President Truman yesterday voiced fresh hope for peace in 1951, but he refused to predict that war will not come. And he made it plain that the nation's growing rearmament program will bring just about total control of prices and wages. The president hinted that he'll ask Congress in his next State of the Union message on Monday to remove the curbs on his power to control farm prices. He already has strong power to control other prices as well as wages, and he said he will use this power as soon as it is physically possible. The U.S. probably will be shipping arms to Spain within a year, that according to an informed British source in London yesterday. The informant, in close touch with high British officials, added Spain also is likely to be taken into the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This continued international crisis, the informant said, would override protests against recognition of the Franco regime. In an atmosphere of bitter partisanship, John Lodge, 41-year-old Republican, was sworn in Wednesday night as governor of Connecticut at Hartford. The Democrat-controlled Senate boycotted the proceedings because of a bitter all-day battle with the GOP-controlled House over the adoption of joint rules. Lodge had been at the Capitol since 2 p.m. Wednesday, waiting for the legislature to meet in joint session to witness his inauguration as successor to Governor Chester Bowles, a Democrat. Then at 11:52 p.m. Wednesday night, he was given the oath by State Supreme Court Justice Alan L. Brown. Lodge said the state constitution made it mandatory for him to take the oath on Wednesday. A $3 billion federal housing program aimed primarily at meeting defense needs announced on Capitol Hill yesterday. Chairman Maybank, the Democrat of South Carolina of the Senate Banking Committee, Chairman Spence, the Democrat of Kentucky of the House Banking Committee, said twin bills for the administration-sponsored program will be introduced in both houses of Congress next week. And Mrs. Jenny Bean of Shoreham, Massachusetts, commenting on the birth of her 28th grandchild, said that announcement was basically making her beginning to feel old. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Friday, January 5th, 1951. On your radio, The New Adventures of Nero-Wolfe, the conclusion we'll hear next. On this Thursday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. We'll close out this week of Classic Radio Theater with an episode of Calling All Cars going back 84 years to January 6, 1939 in the case of the grass skirt. A holdup took place in San Francisco, and we hear two policemen speaking from the studios of KSFO San Francisco, something that was not common 84 years ago. That'll be coming up on Friday's Classic Radio Theater, but now the conclusion of The New Adventures of Nero-Wolfe. Sydney Greenstreet stars from 72 years ago, January 5th, 1951, as we were hearing Archie say,
Gatto is dead.
You don't say.
He was murdered last night.
Murdered?
And what would you say, Mr. Lawson, if I told you that this hat is your wife's and that it was found in a closet in Gatto's apartment?
Now, wait a minute. Let me get this straight. Are you implying...
Not implying. Facts are sticking out.
What time was this dumb brute done away with?
Oh, I'd set it at somewhere between 5 and 7 p.m. last night.
Well, you said it very conveniently. Thanks.
Why?
My wife and I drove out of the city at 4:30 yesterday afternoon. Didn't get back until 2 this morning.
And this hat? It took wings and flew into Gatto's closet? Is that the answer?
No, that's not the answer.
Then what is?
This is. A month and a half ago, I was with Celia on a bus top. She was wearing that hat, and the wind blew it off her head.
I see. And from there, we figured that somebody picked it up, and it finally wound up at Gatto.
You can figure anything you please. Personally, I don't feel in any way obligated to figure anything.
Darling, I was just on my way out, and... Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were busy.
Yes, I am busy, Celia.
Wait a minute. He's not all that
Run along
busy.
now, dear. You'll be late.
But I want to talk
Run
to you.
along, Celia.
Yes, darling. Sorry. I'll see you later.
Beautiful. Really beautiful.
I've always thought so, Goodwin.
You, didn't give me much of a chance to talk to her, did you, Lawson?
If I didn't, it's for your own good.
My good? I don't get it.
Celia's a sensitive person, and I won't have her bothered.
And do you mean to tell me you let him scare you?
Let him scare me? Say, will you stop being so fearless with my life? The guy said don't bother my wife, so I didn't bother his wife. It was that simple.
Apparently his wife is not blonde. Answer the phone, Archie.
No, you answer it. Now you've hurt my feelings.
Oh, well. Hello?
I want to speak to Mr. Nero-Wolfe.
Mr. Wolfe speaking.
Oh? Is it true that you're interested in the Gatto murder?
Who are you, and how do you know he's been murdered?
The second question is none of your business. And as for the first, call me Jerry. J-E-R-I.
How do you do, Jerry? J-E-R-I. Where do you call?
Would you like to come to an auction?
An auction?
You know, going, gone, to the highest bidder.
And what are you placing on the auction block, Miss Jerry?
A few facts. All in good condition and guaranteed to make it a cinch to snag the Gatto killer.
Sounds promising.
Only you'll have to bid against real money.
May I have the address of the auction room?
You'll have no trouble finding it. Your assistant was there last night.
Where?
The penthouse on top of 206A Rathburn Street. The big item goes on at 4 bells. Yeah? Who is it?
Man named Wolf sent me.
Just a sec.
You're Jerry, huh?
I was expecting the man named Wolf.
Unfortunately for me, honey, when he's expected, I usually show up.
Come on in.
You? See, I'm the legs of the combination. He's the brains. It makes a nice division of labor.
I see. You came in plenty of time.
On the nose is our custom. Where are the rest of the bidders?
Any second now.
Mm-hmm. How many besides me are coming?
1.
Small auction.
But big action.
How'd you happen to decide on this?
I knew Gatto pretty good.
And you were fond of him pretty good, huh?
How did you guess?
Well, you've got a key to this place of his, or you couldn't let yourself in. It adds, no?
Gee, you should have been a detective.
Just what I keep telling Mr. Wolf. Look, tell me, Jerry, darling, this other person who's coming to the auction, who?
The killer.
You don't say. You sure the killer isn't here already?
Look, I didn't kill him.
The story you would like me to believe is that you witnessed the killing, huh? Called the killer and Mr. Wolf and said, come on, kids, you can get me either to talk or shut up, depending on who pays the most. That it?
Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, prove you know what you're talking about. Who is the killer? Is it Block Rainey?
Should also have your head examined, pretty boy. I talk for dough and only for dough. Not that I'm mercenary or anything,
Okay, tell me this. How come you saw the killer in the act?
Simple. I was here with Gatto. Called me to come see him. While I was here, the shot came through the window there from the roof.
You know something, sweetheart?
What?
I can't understand how a girl like you, a pretty nice girl under all that paint and powder and Broadway shellac, how you could do a thing like this. You were in love with Gatto, I know that. Everybody does. And still you're willing to keep your mouth shut if the killer pays enough. How come? What's the matter, honey? Did I hit a tender spot?
I don't think you understand. Sure, I was in love with the goof. Then along comes this other dame. She's rich and beautiful, and she has everything to give him.
Ooh, do I know her?
Of course you do. She...
Jerry!
Oh.
Jerry.
She was just about to tell me, and then the shot came through the window from the roof, boss. It's a flat roof outside.
You didn't, I suppose, see the murderer?
No. I caught Jerry in my arms. By the time I laid her down on the couch and got out on the roof, the killer was gone.
Get right over here and bring our client with you, if you can find him.
Rainey?
That's right. He has a right to be in on the kill.
Okay, boss. But keep away from that beer till I get there.
Don't be impertinent. I shall be busy phoning Mr. and Mrs. Lawson. Meanwhile, I want them here, too. Besides, one bottle won't do any harm. There they are. Let them in, Archie. You remain seated, Mr. Rainey.
Okay, Mr. Wolf.
Well, come in, Mr. Lawson. Come in.
Mr. Wolf here?
He's here. Nice of you to come.
Anything to help the law.
Ah, Mr. Lawson. Your wife didn't come?
No, Mr. Wolf. She was out when you called. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. I left word with the butler, however.
Mr. Lawson, about 20 minutes ago, a girl named Jerry Fay was killed.
So?
She was killed in your neighborhood, in a flat formerly occupied by one Pepe Gatto.
Well, where would that be?
Maybe your wife knows where the flat would be.
How dare you, sir?
No histrionics, please. Where was your wife when the girl was killed? I'm advising you that if there is an alibi, now's the time to state it.
I wouldn't humiliate Celia by alibying for her.
And the police will pick her up.
But she didn't kill this girl, Mr. Wolf.
You have reasons for that opinion?
The best of reasons.
I'd be grateful if you'd state them and let me be the judge of their excellence.
One should do. This one. Celia's out in the country visiting her mother.
Oh?
Does that settle it?
Possibly. What's her mother's telephone number?
Why,
Merely a routine check.
Well, can't you take my word?
I'll take her mother's number. Well, Mr. Lawson?
I'm sorry. I hoped you'd buy the story.
What do you mean?
The mother's been dead for 10 years.
I see.
Well, I don't. What's the idea?
It's known as marital devotion, Archie. I suppose you realize, Mr. Lawson, that in shielding your wife, you're aiding and abetting a murderess?
I haven't stopped to realize anything. When Goodwin brought me that hat, I didn't know what to say.
Oh, you pitched me a curve then, too.
Well, I suppose you might call it that, but...
And she didn't lose the chapeau off a bus top.
No, but you've got to understand. Celia's the dearest thing in life to me.
Yeah, so's a lady rattlesnake to its husband.
I suggest it is time for you to be objective in this matter, Mr. Lawson.
What do you want to know?
Tell us where she can be found.
I have no idea.
When is she expected to return home?
Never.
Oh?
You see, we had an argument. I doubt that I'll ever see her again.
Then we're quite on our own, Archie.
To do what?
Make a journey to Gatto's apartment.
Gatto's apartment?
She probably has a key to that popular abode.
But she wouldn't go there, boss.
On the contrary, I am of the opinion that that's just where she would go. Give me my hat.
Don't tell me you're going to stir yourself.
It's a most unpleasant necessity, Archie. But the lady in question is dangerous and not at all hesitant about indiscriminate gunplay. Get out the car, Archie. We'll make the journey to Rathbun Street penthouse with the hope that Celia Lawson will show up in time to mourn her lost love.
You want me to go along with you too, Mr. Wolfe?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Rainey, I do. I trust this chair will hold me.
Should. Biggest chair in the house.
Mr. Wolfe.
Yes, Mr. Rainey?
Mr. Wolfe, am I to understand that the way you have it figured is that Mrs. Lawson killed Gatto, and then to keep the girl from pinning the crime on her, she killed her too?
What's the matter, Mr. Rainey? Don't you think the theory holds water?
Well, yes. I mean, of course it does.
Thank you. On the other hand, there is room for doubt.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Mr. Wolfe. Would you mind explaining?
I'll explain, Mr. Lawson. Mr. Goodwin was in this room when Jerry Fay was killed. Right, Archie?
Right, boss.
He ran as quickly as he could out onto the roof, but your wife was nowhere in evidence.
What difference does that make?
A good deal, I'd say. Wouldn't you, Archie?
Yes, a detail like that would give a jury room for doubt.
Oh, don't be a fool.
How so, Rainey?
Well, I was about to agree with Rainey. I mean on sheer logic.
I'm afraid I miss your point, Mr. Lawson.
Well, what if Goodwin didn't see her? That proves nothing. She fired the shots, and then she ran down the fire escape.
What fire escape?
The one a few feet beyond the chimney.
Mr. Lawson.
Yes?
Who told you there was a fire escape there?
Why,
Yeah, who did? You can't see it from here, Lawson.
Well, I just imagined there might be.
Sensationally accurate imagination, Mr. Lawson. Allow me to congratulate you.
I don't know what you have in mind.
You have in mind to see your wife convicted of the murder of Pepe Gatto, and so punish them both for having dared to fall in love.
I love Celia. I worship her.
Yes, that's what you expected me to believe, hoping, meanwhile, that a hat would convict her. You worshipped her until she became fascinated by a young savage animal known as Pepe Gatto.
No.
At that point, the worship shifted into reverse, and you went green with hate. Hate that drove you to climb that fire escape that you know so much about and shoot him in the back.
You're dreaming.
Jerry Fay saw you in the act, and when she was about to divulge your identity to Archie, you killed her too, meaning to hang her murder on your wife along with the other killing.
That's a lie.
Mr. Lawson, I didn't bring you here to apprehend your wife. There's really no reason why she should come here. I suggested this visit in the belief that you'd betray some guilty knowledge of the place and circumstances, as you have so obligingly just done.
You're clever, aren't you?
Monumentally.
But a little hasty.
So? Why?
This gun in my hand. Haven't you noticed?
Of course, sir, but yours is not the only gun in the world.
What?
Sit still, Arnold, and don't turn around.
Your wife, Mr. Lawson. Come in, my dear.
Celia, what are you doing here?
I came to get a hat that I'd left in Pepe's closet. It suddenly was clear to me what was in the wind, and I thought I'd better remove all evidence that you could possibly use against me.
Celia, listen, you must understand
I
it's for you.
understand one thing only. Pepe's gone, and you took him away.
Listen, please, if you let me explain, you'll understand.
Yeah?
Please, honey, help me.
Sure, I'll help you.
Celia!
Well, that's all, Mr. Wolfe. What now?
Archie, why is it when you drive it always gets so crowded outside?
Will it go tough on her, boss?
Why not? She killed a man in cold blood, though she actually saved our lives while doing so.
I hope that helps her at the trial.
I hope so, Archie. After all, if she hadn't done what she did, what would have happened to the lobster bisque?
What lobster bisque?
The lobster bisque that Fritz is making for dinner. Hurry, Archie. It really can't be appreciated unless it's eaten hot.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sydney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story was based on the characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman program, produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Larry Dobkin as Archie Goodwin, and Ann Diamond, Charlotte Lawrence, Gerald Moore, Don Diamond, and Eddie Fields. Next week at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you The Case of the Killer Card. Don Stanley speaking.
From 72 years ago, January 5th, 1951, The New Adventures of Nero-Wolfe, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Would you please thank this station, support their advertisers? It's their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time you roll around here on your favorite radio station. If you miss a day, you don't have to miss a single show. We do 21 hours of classic radio theater every week. You can hear each and every hour at our webpage, classicradio.stream. Stream our shows on demand to learn about classic radio collecting. You can find all of our social media links there. You can contact me, and you can also buy me a coffee. That Buy Me a Coffee money goes toward us acquiring additional classic radio collections and helps us keep our distribution channels up and running. That's all at classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. Have yourself a great Thursday, won't you please? Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right there at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox right here on your favorite radio station.